Stan, here we are, DDR, in an appropriate uniform for today's story of my ordinary life. I'm going to try and keep it just this. I'm just going to do the Germany bit. Hopefully it won't be too long, but I can't promise anything. I can't stop talking, can I? You know when you say, like, the cost of living crisis, you should go what you know. I've got a light refreshment going on now. I was been to the local shop and I thought, oh, it looks cheap, I'll get some of that. Anyway, I have got a couple of notes today, simply because I just want to make sure I get everything down that I think is relevant to the story. Because I forgot in my story of my apprenticeship, if you remember, you left me leaving my hometown in the car with the agent and another guy going to work in Germany in 1989, and I was petrified. But what I forgot to say was that, again, like, I don't want to go on too much about my private life, but that when I was working in Hull as an apprentice, I used to ring my parents every Monday when I'd arrive, when I got into the digs, the bed and breakfast. And in those days there was no mobiles. So the landlady, big Victorian house, there was a telephone on the wall in the landlady's kitchen. She was a Hattie Jakes type, larger than life character. So I goes into the kitchen one day and I rings my parents. I'm here, see you on Friday, my dad. Now bear in mind she can only hear my side of the conversation. She said, your mum wants to have a word with you. Oh, okay. So she comes on the phone. Now all the landlady could hear me say is, pregnant? Twins? Oh, okay. And I put the phone down, I turned around, she went, is it your girlfriend's son? I went, no, it's me mum. Yeah, twins, my mum had twins. It was me and my sister, then my mum had twins when I was 19. Little buggers they are as well. They're not now in the third. Anyway, enough of that. I thought I'd pass that out. So I go to Germany. And I go to the airport with the agent, just go to the bar and stuff. Now, the guy he introduced as the welder was probably a lad about 10 years older than me. Now, my apprenticeship was, traditionally at that time, an apprenticeship was 4 years with college 1 day a week, employed directly for a firm. Now, as I explained in the other videos, that this was different. Mine was slightly different. It was a national apprenticeship scheme. And I think they do it a lot nowadays. I think basically a lot of firms put money in, I think I explained before, like a sponsorship. At the end of the training period, we want 8 apprentices, 10 apprentices. It saves hassle for firms. But as it was a fairly non-standard thing at the time, I've a couple of times been working like people have said, what, so you never served your apprenticeship? No, I did. It was just slightly different from maybe the way you did it. So I mentioned it to this lad in the bar and he went, oh, so you're not really time served then? I went, oh yeah, I am. I was petrified of getting sort of found out because I'd never worked in a shipyard before. He said it a few times. I thought, oh God, they went through a bad start. The bloke was going to be working with me. I think I was going to be sharing a room with. Didn't think I was a real tradesman. So we get to, I'm not sure if I met the other fellas in the airport or when we got to the hotel. And basically the situation in this part of the world, you had the Tyne, the Weir and the Tees, and they all had a lot of shipbuilding on. The Tees probably the least. I think there was two. Three. Oh, maybe going back in ancient history, just tell that there was some in Stockton. They went World War II, 50s maybe. There was William Gray's in Greetham. Is it Greetham? Greythorpe, Hartlepool. They were gone in the 60s. But on the River Tees itself, there was Furnaces, became Swan Hunter, and Smithstock. They closed down 79 and 87 respectively. The Weir had 4 big yards, I think, and the Tyne, I'm not sure, but big yards there. I mean, you've got to remember, everything I say here is just how I remember it. If it doesn't tie in with dates, whatever, I'm not trying to make things up, just how I remember it, and if I've got a few facts wrong, I apologise. So basically, this firm that was going out there to work for the Germans was picking up the flotsam and jetsam of the old shipyard industries in the area, Teesside being the least really. So these guys were all from Sunderland. So we get to the hotel, and it turned out there was 2 labourers, and one of them was a really old guy. I mean, you know, these fellas, I'd never been away from home, but these fellas had a job for life in the shipyard. And all of a sudden now they're having to travel to another country. 2 labourers, a burner. Now, burner was an archaic trade when I was an apprentice, and there's probably not any left now. There was the odd one in the offshore industry, and basically it's a guy who uses an oxygas cutting equipment to make shapes and profiles, and it is a trade in its own right. Platers do it all now, but a plater doing it is like way rougher, because it is the guy could literally cut a piece of steel out and you just have to rub it over with a file. That's how clean cut it would be. And there was a shipwright. Now a shipwright is traditionally, hundreds of years ago, a fellow who would make parts of a ship out of wood. Now when the ships became metal, I was actually going to ring my dad today, but I can see their house from here, his car's not there, so I can't. I'm not ringing him on his mobile. He gets confused very easily. I'm sure he told me years ago that when the ships became metal, a shipwright then was allowed to build from the deck up over, or from a certain part of the ship. The platers did everything else, but to keep, whether it was a union deal or a deal with the company, to keep them working as a trade, they would build, it was a plater in effect. So when I got to the job on the morning, we went to the shipyard and it was huge. It was like, I thought, no wonder we can't cope with our yards. I remember seeing like floating docks sinking, ships coming in and tugs. It was like, you can imagine like these ships all moving about, and I thought, there's investment here. Consequently, I did go in the template loft there. They'd refitted the QE2 this yard, not the year or two before. So you know, we weren't competing in this country with that sort of thing. So anyway, we get to the dockside, and bearing in mind, I literally had never been in a. I actually had been in a shipyard when I was very young. Saw a ship being launched, and traditionally in this country we used to launch them down slipways so they'd hit the water, and drag chains would stop it from going to the side of the bank. And again, I'm not sure of this. If I could have spoken to my dad today, I would have clarified it. I think it was a way of testing the hull of the ship, maybe. But I know the Germans, I'd learnt out there, were building things in dry docks and just floating them out, whether there's any need to do it. Again, it's just from memory. The actual yard I was in was a ship repair yard, which is a ship repair and conversion, which is slightly different, but same thing. I'd never been on one before, and we had to do this job on the quayside. And it was like, you know, a beam, you gird a beam, make it up out of thick plate, mark it off. So the manager who was with us, or the foreman, went, you know, Sunderland fellow, right, son. Now we got to remember as well, this will be relevant later on. More of the probably weir side and T side people, the old shipyard fellas, because every one of them, shipyard person, I was the only one who wasn't. And I think that was near enough right through the job. There might be the odd one or two, but I was it really, you know, stand on the spot if you like. And he said, right, son, when you mark this up, we're going to put it all together. You know what you're doing. And I was like, do, but anyway, the shipwright fella turned out to be a really nice fella, older bloke. He had the dungarees on, the bib and brace, and he took me under his wing, and I became, in all intents and purposes, his apprentice. And he certainly taught me a lot, and he certainly put up with me sometimes when I wasn't always doing what I was supposed to be doing. You know, when I was a young fella, he taught me a few things. I'll give him that, and I won't say his name. He probably isn't alive now, and I've seen him a couple of times in the 90s on other jobs. Yeah, a really, really patient fella. And I look back at those days and I think, you know, all these men, all working in one big, over 4 yards in Sunderland. There was the Pallion yard, and I can't remember the name of the other ones. And all of a sudden the government just went, that's it, finished. All that gone. You know, I worked with some of these fellas. I don't want to get all heavy about it. So we made this thing, and we got it all hoisted up into the bowels of the ship, if you like. And it was time to weld it. Now, I have to remember this as well. People have often said to me, I mean, I'm doing this because one of my friends at least said, close friends, quite engaging, quite interesting. I've heard all your boring stories before, but it was quite interesting. And, you know, I've had a couple of bits of positive feedback. But if anyone thinks it's crap, just tell me and I'll stop doing it. You know, Military Channel is my thing first, but talking crap's my thing second. But it has been said to me in the past, you know, you Geordies, people have said it to me on the comments, or when you've worked in other parts of the country or the world, who are not Geordies around here. Geordies are people from Newcastle. People from Sunderland are called Mackhams. The reason they're called Mackhams is because they used to build ships. They used to mack them, make them, that's their accent, mack them, tack them, mack them and tack them up and weld them. That's where it comes from. Round here, we've got an identity crisis. We don't want to, south of the river was Yorkshire, north of the river was Durham. The show Arvidas Empet, the second one, they were going across the transporter and someone says, what are they around here? And I think Dennis Healy, the actor, says, oh, I don't know what they are. Smuggies, because a lot of chemical industry. And a lot of the football fans now have took that to heart. That's what we are called down here, smuggies. But I'm not, I don't. It's a modern thing. I'm not a smuggy. Anyway, so there was a lot of rivalry between the Tyne, the Tees and the Weir, not only in football, but with the industries for shipbuilding. So it's going to be a long one. There's 10 minutes. I haven't even got anywhere. Bloody hell, I haven't. Oh, how dear me. Right, okay, I'll keep going, Stan. So we put this steel assembly up, and it was time to weld it. And what they were using was a thing called iron powder, great big fat welding rods. Like, I don't know if they use it anymore. Basically, it's a way of laying down a lot of metal. I don't believe it's got a lot of penetration. It's a bit like MIG weld now, semi-automatic, and literally you can stand there and go look the other way, and it just lays it down. It's not. I'm not saying it's unskilled because welding's a trade, but it's just easy to use. And I'd never used one before. This welder was struggling. He really was struggling. Like, just couldn't do it. And the foreman was getting really agitated. And he said, "Get the young one up here." I was 20. "Get the young one up here. You have a go." That's when I was quite a competent welder anyway. Anyway, it turns out that the lad, if you remember the conversation he was having with me in the bar, whether I was really, he wasn't time served at all. He hadn't really he'd done a welding course for 6 weeks. I mean, fair play, his chance in his arm. So they weren't very happy with him, and they put him on like grinding parts of the steel up. And he was a good worker. He definitely got stuck in. After a few weeks of this, they said, "Look, you lied to us," and they sacked him. So that's why he was questioning me. He's me worrying. He was trying to get at me. He was probably trying to find like a kindred spirit, if you want. So I don't know. So anyway, I really liked Germany. I really liked the way it looked and everything. It was very nice indeed. One of the strange things that happened to me while I was there, and again, it's all muddled up in my head, the time frame, so I probably haven't got it all right, but when we started going into the interior of the ship, because we were working on a North Sea ferry, 2 of them, and I've sailed on it. I've actually sailed in it a few years later when I was on a rugby tour, and I thought, bloody hell, it's the... And basically what we were doing was widening the ship by putting tanks on the side, and the British had a contract to do a certain part of it, the Germans doing the rest, and they were adding an extra deck. So obviously another deck, it needed to be wider. That was basically it. When we got inside the ship and we were cutting holes, penetrations into the ship, there was a lot of fumes. Now, there was no masks. Maybe I could have got one from the stores, I don't know. But there was no masks, and I was not used to breathing these sort of fumes. And I've worked on site most of the time, and I really got a bad throat infection. My throat closed up, I couldn't breathe properly. I had to go to the apothecary in Germany to get some like gargling juice to get rid of this infection, which it did. But it took me a while to get. It shows you what sort of poisons are in industrial work. And another thing I noticed straight away as well. At the time, offshore workers certainly, and chemical work industry types like me wore orange overalls, and welders and people wearing hot work had spotty hats on, like welders' caps. They're always, some of them might have a beer advert on, or a flag or something like that. It's quite a common thing in this line of work. I went there with all that kit on. I was noticing the foreman was watching people. You could see orange overalls. The Germans were all dressed in like a canvas bib and brace with jacket and a blue hard hat. And I thought to myself, if I want to go for a walk around the shipyard, I better get some German clobber. So I went to the stores and I just asked them, "Can I have some of that stuff?" And they give me it all. And I actually walked past my own gaffer a few times. He didn't even know it was me. I suppose I've got a German in the face, haven't I? I don't mean that. Very happy, very pleasant people, Germans, in my experience anyway. Apart from a couple of things that went on, but that's later anyway. So, I'm just going to take a little look at my notes. I do apologise. Wait a minute, 2 seconds. Right, yeah, I've wrote it all down, so I want to make sure I get it all right. The Germans were okay with us, and the but is, they were sabotaging our cables. There was... Basically, to get to where these cables, the welding gear would go off, the burning gear would go off. So I was the youngest guy on the job by 10 years, probably. Right, you go outside, I go all the way around the dock, the other side of the ship. I come in, and I always remember there was a big German fire watcher there with shock of red hair. And if you stood, and there'd be a bundle of cables going right to every which way you like in the ship, and our oxygen gas cables were just cut in half. And this happened on more than one occasion. I went to him, "What's going on here?" He went, and he points to the forklift. Now they made like a plate either side to tuck the cables in. The forklift goes over the top, but there was only ours that were damaged. So I mean, you know, people don't like other people coming in. We'd have probably been working for less money than they were, definitely, I would imagine. So you're understandable. At one point, I mean, you could drink on German shipyards, or you could obtain drink. I don't know if you can now. which was like, oh, don't let the Brits near that. They had like vending machines with your cans of beer, and the Germans, where those holes in the bottom of the ship we were working on, they'd throw cans down at us, in a not a very pleasant way, but that's the way life goes sometimes. I think. So anyway, let's have a think. I block me head's go right. Okay, right. We'll get back on it because I've wrote notes down. I'm sort of losing my plot a little bit. So because I played rugby at the time, I didn't want to get like out of condition. I mean, the main activity was working. I think 50 hours a week, Monday to Friday, 10 hours, Saturday 8, 6, maybe Friday a little bit earlier, and then just go out and have a drink. Didn't work Sundays. But I started training with an older welder who was a bit of a sprinter. And we used to go to the local athletics track, but he used to go out with his mate for something to eat first. So there was some reason, but to get to the athletics track, I had to go through the red light area. And the women, obviously quiet, were banging on the windows, and I was so shy and naive, I couldn't even look at them. Strange how you remember these things. But at one point, I seem to remember it was a morning time, and it was very misty, and I was stood on the deck of the ship. It was still dark, and again, this must have been later on. A massive funnel of a ship with a hammer and sickle illuminated in gold, yellow, come drifting through the mist, and it was a Russian cruise ship. Now this is before the Berlin Wall came down, definitely, and I remember thinking, what's that doing here? And all the crew came off, women in fur coats, and they were looking for American dollars. That's what they wanted. They were in the shipyard pub. They wanted American dollars. And later on, as well, again, if people say this didn't happen, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I saw it. So they had various dry docks in Bremerhaven, and one of them, I think twice, definitely once, but there was like a little patrol boat, not a speedboat, a decent steel construction thing, quite substantial, but a small thing, no less, maybe 20 crew or something, Russian, Soviet. And I went and had a look. Bear in mind, I'm wearing the old German uniform, German, not the German uniform, like one like this, but the German clothing. No one knew what it was. And there's a Marine, I presume a Marine, on the gangplank with a Kalashnikov, like that. I remember looking at him, he just stood there, and I thought, I couldn't work out why they're supposed to be the enemy, aren't they, in the Cold War, but they were getting stuff done to their ships, cruise ship and a military ship, in the West German shipyard. I couldn't work that out. If anyone knows the reason why, I mean, maybe it was something that was quite common, the trade between the two. I'm unsure. But I'll go back to me accommodation. I'll mention a couple of things on that. When I first got there, a delicate subject, I suppose, but I have told my friends this tale a few times. I ended up sharing a room when I first got there with that welder, but he got sacked. I ended up sharing a room with another fella who was possibly 40, getting on for a wife, 2 kids, and say we didn't work Sunday, and I used to go out all hours. I used to lay in bed all day on a Sunday and go out later on at night. And he used to go dancing or something on Sunday, but have a drink. And he comes in this one Sunday, and the sink, if you're having a shave, was just right near the door. I was having a shave, I was getting ready to go out. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he comes in. I just stood in my underpants, and he'd had a drink. And he put his arm around me. And he got friendly, too friendly, to the point where I said to him, like, keep, I won't say his name, keep your hands to yourself, mate. You know what I mean? Just, oh, no, you've mistaken me. I thought, well, no, I haven't. Whatever. I'm not gonna fall out with the bloke. He was he obviously had other interests in life, one might say, and he was barking right up the wrong tree with me. So I made sure the week after I got, or a few days after that, maybe the Monday, that I got a room on my own. I never told anybody on site. I mean, I'm telling you now, but you don't know who he is, and the fella might be probably dead now. Anyway, I don't know. But I have told some of my friends that, and that's a sanitised version, if you like. But yeah, just funny world, isn't it, we live in? But I didn't tell anyone on the job, and I just treated him exactly the same way as I treated him before on the job. And he was a friendly lad, but just too friendly with me. We'll all stand. So there you go. That's that. Another time, I got my room on my own. There was a bathroom before the bedroom, so you open the door, you're in a bathroom in the bedroom, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, bang, smack, crash, like someone's trying to kick me door in, and he was. It was a welder from round here, drunk out of his mind, decided that I was in his bedroom and his brain. I opened the door and he fell into the bathroom. And I literally say, I'm not trying to come across as some sort of hard man or anything like that, but sometimes you've got to stand your grounds. Doesn't matter how old you are. I was, say, 20, this guy was 30, started like getting aggressive. I just turned him round, pushed him in the hallway, locked the door. And I waited till the next day, and he was working on the ship just under the deck. I climbed down the scaffold and he was nursing his hangover. And I went, all right, thingy. He went, all right, mate. I said, do you remember last night? He went, no. I said, well, you tried to kick my door in. Did I? I went, yeah, you did. Yeah. I said, don't let it happen again. Like I say, I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of hard man, because I'm not. But sometimes, you just get pushed, don't you? So, yeah. So, this place, Bremerhaven, I'm sure that's where Elvis landed. There was a massive American army, there was a big American presence there in the army base. And oh shit! Oh, this cat, she's got claws like fish hooks. She just fish hooked my leg. Anyway, in probably November. See, I'm getting all out of kilter with the timeline here. You can read this up on the internet. In the North Sea, there was a container ship that crashed into a ferry, and 2 or 3 people were killed on it, and one fellow was with his family, an older gent. When the container ship hit the ferry, he was catapulted from the ferry on the container ship. They thought he was dead. They couldn't find him, but he survived. And that ferry came into the Bremerhaven shipyard I was working at, and it was the damaged part where people are being killed was pointed seawardly, so you couldn't see it. But yeah, I remember that very clearly. Also, as the job got more and more, this cat is literally trying to claw me to death. Please stop. As the job got more and more, there was more people, more fellas coming into the job from round here and from Sunderland, Newcastle, and the squad got quite big. One fella, I'll say he'd definitely be dead now. Definitely be dead, 100%. I won't say his nick. I'll just say his first name, Arthur. And he was a character, man. He was about 6'2" with a massive comb over. You know the old Bobby Charlton comb over. And I said, like, the other fella took me under the wing at work. He took me under his wing outside of work. You know, just we had some fun. A lot older than me. He must have been in his early 60s, close to retirement then. He could drink, he could smoke, and we went to a Hell's Angels bar, me and him. But the funny thing was, all the Hell's Angels were riding bicycles. They weren't riding motorbikes. And they started getting a bit chewy with us, and he just turned around in English, didn't speak German, and he just went, if you don't fuck off, I'll hit you with him. And they left us alone. But they also started some fellas came from one of the other towns around here, Hartlepool, and they were aluminium welders. They were just welders, but the job had aluminium on it, and that, I mean, nobody was what you call coded to do it. So these fellas came on the job, of 3 of them. And as I say, I was the youngest fella on there by a long, maybe 10 years. And when you like that, people sort of look after you a bit, you know, and they want to have a bit of crack with you, a bit of a joke with you. So I'm walking along the deck one day, and I hear, psst, oi, psst. And there's a lifeboat with a canvas cover on. I think we'd moved ships by then. We were on the cruise ship we were doing, because there was several contracts. And the canvas lifts back. These 3 welders were in there having cocktail hour. I know it's not funny. You shouldn't drink at work, but they were. Do you want to get in here with us? I went, oh no, I'm not doing that. I didn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But so when the people from the other from the Middlesbrough Smith's Dock, when they came on the job more and more, the job started changing a bit. These fellas had a big rivalry with the Wearside fellas. I mean, if you remember I said the interview that the fellow had said to me, do you mind working with lads from Sunderland? And I said no, and that was the reason he asked me. I didn't know what it meant, and I fell in between because I was from this area, but because I wasn't a shipyard lad, that I did fall into a bit of a grey area. And this one fellow was a gaffer, and he accused me of stealing some of his tools and this and that and the other. They started taking over the job, and I used to drive the little crew bus, little Volkswagen Transporter, left-hand drive. And this one fella, he said, I'm taking over. He's one of the Middlesbrough types, Middlesbrough lot. And he nearly knocked someone over the car, but he killed him, nearly hit him. And I went, bloody hell, put my hands up. And he went, ah. And he started having a go at me, even though he caused the accident. I got out of the van and said, I'm not travelling with you anymore. So I jumped out the van in the middle of November in Bremerhaven, German winter, and I thought, I'll show him as he drove off. And I thought, I'm freezing cold. Anyway, another van came and picked me up. But that's the reason why I didn't go back after Christmas. The first trip, I was 20, so it was after the July. And it was 5 months, I think. And I came home one weekend in the middle, just for 3 or 4 days. The second time out there was a little bit different. But I thought the third time, it's just not going to be the same. It wasn't. Should work be fun? Yeah, I think so. I think it should be an experience. And it was becoming very, very toxic. And I got involved, after that incident with the van, I got involved in a sort of blame game. The Wearside lads were having a go at Teesside lads, and I was being used as a foil for both arguments, and I wasn't happy with that at all. But yeah, I'm just going to pause again. I have to check my notes. Sorry, it's very yeah. I have to rattle through to get the fun bit. I also, when I was there, we had a weekend off, Saturday and Sunday, and we went to there's a naval museum in Bremerhaven, and they had a U-boat, and I was like, oh, can't wait to see this. We get there, and I thought, that's not a bloody U-boat. Not like the ones out the films, because it was, in fact, a Type 21 electric boat. And if they'd had them early in the war, we'd been in trouble. And they went inside, it was marvellous. Check it up, you look it up yourself, a Type 21 electric boat. And we had fun there. Also, some lads who came on the job later on from the area who were in the 30s, full of life, and they wanted me to be full of life as well. So 2 of them, we're taking you out tonight. Oh, okay, where we're going? We're going into town. So we're into town, and we're going to this bar here. Go on this bar. It was brothel. It's brothel. So I'm 20. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was green as grass. I don't know, but you just think to yourself, oh, I don't want to be in here. I was talking to the girls who worked there, and just a bit of this and that and the other, and they offered, do you want? No, I don't want to hear. The other two lads had gone upstairs. I didn't. I was very uncomfortable for me. I think that's probably the only time I've ever been in a brothel in my life. I think not knowing. I've been to Amsterdam and also, but I've never gone in. But yeah, it's I don't know. I suppose an interesting life experience. Who knows? Yeah. Also, at this time, the pub they used to drink in across the road, run by an old German called Harry. We call it the Cabbage Patch. I've since looked on Google Street View thing. It's all been demolished. It's a car park now. And all the streets are tarmacked. But at the time, it was cobbled streets with tram lines, and you could sort of sense an old Germany. And one night, there was a couple of guys in there who said they'd fought in the war. Older fellas. One fella, a little short guy, shorty, and he was in the Luftwaffe, so he said. And he had the scars to prove it, which he showed us. And one day, Harry had something wrong with his hand. I don't know whether he had a toe on here or just grafted it, and he damaged it in the war. I can't honestly remember what service he served in, but he was in the war. And one day he said to me, "Hey Johnny, come here." And Stan, come here. So he, I goes over to him, and his wife was stood going, and she was like a typical little white-haired German sort of old lady, glasses on. And he went, "Look at this," and he started flicking these photographs down, and they were of a street with marching bands and symbols of the Third Reich. You understand, black and white photographs. And he said, "There were the good old days." And I said, "Where's this?" He went, "Out here." It was the photograph near enough of that street, just from the probably pre-war days. And yeah, I thought, oh God, all right, okay, yeah, fair enough, whatever. Yeah, interesting to meet these people. And also, we were in there one day, and I can't remember how this came about, this incident. I don't think this has come across as well. I ended up talking for nearly 40 minutes because I'm a bit staged, aren't I? A bit staged with the old. I'm just going to pause. A bit staged with using notes, but I'm trying me out. Ooh. Not advertising that. I wouldn't advertise it. Bloody, it's not very nice. Anyway, so as I mentioned before, He pauses like refreshment. There was an American Army base there. It probably won't be there now. Also by underwear. While I remember, I've just seen it on there. I used to drive the crew bus, as I said. We drove out one day. Shadow on the Customs House wall, 1937, 39. It is on the internet, this one. There was an eagle and wreath swastika, and they chiselled it out. And the shadow was still there. You could see the swastika. We stopped the van and got out and had a look. I think it's been covered up since, but yeah. So we'd seen American servicemen off duty in the local shops and stuff like that. And the odd one came in the bar. Anyway, this day, I can't remember whether the guy came and sat with us or he was already in there. There was like booths in the bar we all went in. And he had a uniform on. And he was probably in his 40s at the time. And he was a reservist. Now, again, whether I'm telling this right or wrong, he was a reservist. And he wasn't very happy because he'd have to leave his wife and family for every now and then to go here to Birmingham. We were just talking and this, that and the other. He seemed a nice guy. Then two fellas came in, Americans, both sort of average height, black guy and a white guy. Not that makes any difference, but they were. And they came in. Now, I don't know why they didn't notice him sat in the booth. He was surrounded by us, but they didn't. And they sat a couple of booths down. Now, they were being quite loud. They were being disruptive, but they were being loud. And whatever they said, it was like an Americanism, if you want, like, you know, get out of here, or something like that was quite loud. So this guy, this American officer who was sat with us went, oh, get out of here, yeah, like while he was smoking. And next thing, the white guy, he sort of leapt over the booth and went like, are you mocking me? You taking the piss, basically? Getting aggressive. And this guy went, hey, I'm an American, I've got an American. He went, oh, okay. I thought that was very, very odd. Then they got louder and louder and louder. And I went to the toilet. I had a rugby shirt on from my hometown. And one of them says to me, hey, you some sort of hard guy who would play rugby? I went, no. I thought, oh, what's that? That's usually a line set up for, like, you know, a fight, isn't it? You know, that sort of thing. I said, no, I'm not, no. And they were getting a bit louder, and Harry, the old guy, was watching him over the top of his glasses. Well, the pub had not a Doberman, it was the other one, a Rottweiler dog. And as most people know, I'm a cat person. First, I don't mind dogs. I like them. I mean, we were thinking of getting about a dog, me and Mrs. Stan. But I don't have anything against dogs. Big dogs, sometimes you're a bit, oh. But this thing was just so gentle. Just potted around the pub, you pat it on the head, you have your drink. It didn't bother you. So I'd seen the dog go. It used to go in the toilet. I don't know what it was doing. I never went in there to drink out the urinals. I don't bloody know. It did used to go. It was like a swing door. It had gone in there, and the white lad had gone in, the trouble-causing type, American soldier off duty, and we heard like a bang and a scream, a bang and a shout, and I'd gone in for a pee, and there was blood, and he'd said the dog bit him, and the dog was just sat there. I think the dog left, but the dog wasn't like that. Now, I can't remember again from memory whether the mirror was broken or the sink was. This twat, I swear, had done something. He'd been in there, he'd done something, whatever he'd done. But I remember he stood there holding his hand, there was blood. The dog hadn't bit him. He'd smashed something, he'd done something, and he came out. He started going on to the old guy, Harry, who owned the place. Your dog goddamn bit me, blah, blah, friggin' blah, blah, all this sort of shit, you know what I mean? So they sat down again, he said, I'm going to sue you, all right. You can imagine what was going on. He sat down, and then I can't remember if they started pulling the pinball machine and this officer fella, I can't remember if he left or tried to step in and they give him the brush off. I can't remember. Anyway, Harry went out the back. Now, as we all know who watch Steel Helmet Stan's channel regularly, you're going to be on a long, you're going to be on the 40. Get a DDRT and watch this if you want. It's going to be a long one again. As we all know, Stan played rugby, and I've played rugby against some big men. I have. You know, I'm not short, just short of 6 foot. So I'm not a small fellow, but I've played rugby against blokes who are massive, broad. So again, it might just be because I was sat down, I was drunk, or they had the uniform on with the helmets at the top, or whatever. Or it might be the fact that these blokes who turned up in their MP vehicle outside, and they came in, and they were a black guy or a white soldier. Not that it makes any difference, but these blokes were fucking huge. I'm talking like enough to make you go, crap. Well, the two idiots in the corner also went crap. And I remember the black soldier first went, oh, no problem, I'll come quietly. The other fella tried to put up a fight, and they had him by his jeans, like, I picked him up and just dragged him. I'm sure he was just wriggling in the air, I can't remember. I just remember thinking, ooh, don't muck around with military police. I say there's lads on who watch my channel who've been in the armed forces, whether they think that's true or not. You know, whether you disagree with what I'm saying, I don't know. But that is very true. So anyway, I'm nearly finished. One thing that does stick in my mind that I was a couple of people said to me, did you seem down in the last video that you were mentioning a lot of things about like life choices and stuff? And I wasn't feeling down. I was just saying how it was at the time. It was my first time abroad, away from home properly, and whether I've said it in other videos, I don't know. But for what it's worth, my impression, impersonation, feelings on you live in your hometown. Now I'm brought up here. I'm living here. If I had a window there, on that roof side, there's arguably I could probably see my childhood home. Maybe it wouldn't be far off. It's not far that way. In this area, I used to walk the dogs over here when I was a kid. I'm back where I started, but I've been on a journey. Someone's ringing me. They'll have to wait. It might be the clock man. He's been in touch, you know. He said, give me a week. You go, that's 6 months. Anyway, so I have to pause that while it's ringing. It's getting on my nerves. Right, stop ringing. I'm not going to go and answer it. So my impression is that when you're a kid, your hometown is everything. You don't know any different, unless you've got parents who take you abroad. And every time you leave, it's like a kaleidoscope. You know, the kid's toy, it just changes a little bit. Every time you move, you never turn it back. You can never go back home. And I don't necessarily think you'd have to go away for a year trekking through the Amazon rainforest or marching across the North Pole for this. It could just be a fortnight holiday somewhere. And I think it's valuable experience that everyone should leave the hometown for a period of time, just to see what else is out there in the world. I mean, there's places I should have gone, there's places I wish I'd gone, and now I'm getting older, probably I'm getting a bit more set in my ways, and I'm just sitting in my hometown again. But at least I've gone and I want to come back. So anyway, what was my point? So after my first trip, I got sent home for like 4 days, played a game of rugby. He got snapped in half, which was good. But I had to go back. And on the Monday, I was flying from the local airport, and my dad took me. And as we were going along the road, he said, "You're all right going back?" I went, "No, I don't want to go." And he went, "Right, next roundabout, we'll turn right, we'll go back. You don't have to go. No one's making you. It's up to you. It's your decision." And I just went, "Nah, I'm going to go back. I don't want to, but I'll go. I have to go back." And I got to the airport. The old fellow who took me under his wing, the one I worked with, was sat there. Walked in, he went, "Oh, son, I didn't think you were coming back." And he said, "I was hoping you would." So there you go. I mean, it's like, you know, I didn't do the third trip, but that was because of the political side of things, the way. And, you know, I'd earned a bit of money. And sometimes I've been guilty of resting on my laurels in life, instead of, you know, doing the full thing. I've done enough now. And maybe a bit of that as well, youthful stupidity, thinking that, you know, back at home, my mates were doing great things, and they weren't. They weren't doing anything really. But I'm going to end this one now with a bit of a sad story, really. I mean, actually, before that, it's going to be a 40-minute. I did get a spark in my ear, and I've still got a scar on my eardrum, I think. I was burning underneath the ship. Like, I didn't have earplugs in. See, health and safety. And the spark went, tink, and it felt like someone had gone on the side of my head. Pain. And this German guy went, "No good for you." I ended up in hospital, and the doctors were looking at me. The guy had a big disc on there, and he looked like something out of a German World War II film. But the strange thing, it is a sad story, really. The Germans didn't work over at all or much. They had a sort of standard working week. They didn't work through the dinner. Actually, before I tell this story, should I tell the story first? Or I'll go back over. It's going to be 45 minutes now. When I did go home for my weekend, I should have gone to East Germany. I shouldn't have come home to this place, because this place is always going to be here. Even though, say, what's kaleidoscope, life is changing, this place is always going to be here. East Germany wasn't. I didn't know at the time. But literally, I think a week after I came back, or 2 weeks after I came back to Germany, the Berlin Wall fell. I didn't know what was happening. No one knew. And we were sat in the canteen that we'd been allocated, and a German walked in with a newspaper. Yeah, look at that. And it was quite a thing at the time. I didn't realise the ramifications of it, but I wish, if I could go back in time and do things again differently, I don't know how I could have done it, what the problems, whether there were any getting visas. I'd have gone to East Germany, if just for 4 days. You know what I mean? Just to see East Germany as it was before the Berlin Wall came down. But that was something I didn't know now. And this is going to be 45 minutes of me talking just about 5 months of my life. So I'm going to finish with this last story. That the Germans didn't work over, and they didn't work through their dinner. However, we were British guest workers. We used to do all that. And there was also a lot of Southern European workers there who did the same as well. I think most of those people were German residents, though. But from the Turkish community, you know, it had been a thing for a long time in Germany. Now, me and my friend were working on the ferry, and I don't know what the timeline of this was. Maybe it was the October, and we were coming down the steps to the dock bottom. Now, you remember a ferry, the North Sea ferries or the cross channel ferries are great big things out of the water. Walking under one, it's quite when it's on wooden blocks, you know, the height of this ceiling, you can see the underside of the ship, and it is quite an impressive thing, to be fair. But the height, probably from the top deck down over 60 foot, maybe. I'm not sure if you had in the wooden blocks. So me and my friend, the old guy who was looking after me with his bib and brace on his oar, it might have been September because it was warm. We were walking down the dock bottom, and I looked up, and at the fore end of the ship, there was a crane at an angle like that, and with its ropes, its sling things, chains attached to the hull of the ship, and there was a guy sat. I remember he sat cross-legged like that, with an oxy cutting equipment cutting around the hull. We're looking at it this way. We're looking down the ship, but I knew what he was doing because that's what I do for a living. And I went to me mate, look at the angle of that crane. So that crane's like that. As soon as this shell plate, as you call it, comes free, what's it going to do? It's going to go like that. Well, guess what? That's exactly what it did do. It took the shell plate, came out. It took all the scaffolding and the fella with it, and he. Now, bear in mind, we were we for some reason we were the first ones back for dinner. There was nobody about, and I remember looking up and seeing this fella fall, like there was a toy out for kids maybe 20 years ago that was like a little rubber man with rubber feet, like balls for feet, and you'd throw him and he'd stick on the wall like that, like spread eagled. This is what this fella fell like. He fell like star shape, just fell through the air. All happened in slow motion. I can remember it. Surrounded by scaffolding, and he hit the floor like that, a pile of scaffolding, and it's. I'm not. God only knows what it must be like for service people who've been in the army, or people who are in the emergency services who see things like this on a day-to-day basis, because you know it hasn't affected me or anything like that. It's so clearly imprinted on my mind. I remember it like it was yesterday. And me and my friend were the first ones there, and there was just a pile of scaffolding, and this guy's arm was up here. And I remember like there was like blood on his arm, and it was just twitching, you know. And his foot he wasn't dismembered, but he was just entangled in this, and his foot was kicking out. And I thought at first, my first initial reaction, we've got to do something. And then all of a sudden, these Germans appeared from everywhere, shouting, radios going. And I always remember my old mate, the old Mackham mate, went, "Come away, son, come away." And we walked away. And we stood at the bottom of the dock bottom watching what was going on. And about ambulances came with no lights, and they lowered down a metal box off a crane. This would take over a couple of hours. And we went back to the hotel, and then I carried on working. We had a manager of the ship at this time. They were both ships manager, a British guy who spent a lot of time in Korea. He was all right actually, but that's irrelevant. And at the meal break time, meal on the night in the hotel, I said to him, "What happened to that fella then? What's going on?" He went, "It's all right. He's back at work tomorrow." I went, "Hey, yeah, back at work tomorrow. Yeah, whatever." Like he was making a black joke, dark humour. Now I can't confirm 100% that bloke died. I didn't see the death certificate, but if he didn't die, he had life-changing injuries for the rest of his, you know. But the sort of postscript of it, sadly, was a couple of days later. Whatever. I remember talking to a German on the deck, big fellow with big blonde beard. I said, "Hey, what happened to that guy then?" He went, who? I said, the guy who had the accident here up there. He went, it doesn't matter. I said, why? What do you mean it doesn't matter? Do you have a day's respect for someone when they lose their life? And he said, he is a guest worker. It does not matter. We will get another one. Now, that's a sad thing, isn't it, really? That is a very sad thing. I was a guest worker. He was one of the sort of Southern European guest workers, and that was it, really. That was all. I have sort of tried to research industrial deaths, bad injuries in the shipyard. The internet came on, but I couldn't find anything. So whatever happened to that fella, really, truthfully, in the end, I don't know. But as a betting man, I don't think he survived that. It was an awful thing to witness. But that's it. I don't want to get sort of finish on a downer. That's 45 minutes of me talking. How did the German trip finish? It finished the morning before Christmas Eve. When I got up and I was still drunk from the night before, and we all got on the bus to go to the airport, and we were all drinking apple corn, German sort of liquor, and fell on the airplane drunk, which is not a good thing. But anyway, and then the next chapter of my life, ordinary life, which I might have to wait for a bit, I started my naval career. And that really is a stretch of the imagination. I've done that one before, I think, haven't I? But we'll add that to the to-do list. So I hope you've enjoyed me talking absolute rubbish for 45 minutes. If anyone's got anything to add, or think I'm lying or anything like that, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. But that was my my time in Germany. My Arvidas Pet time in Germany. So this is Stan, and I'll see you